Don't know if you guys are Seinfeld fans, but we just lost Jerry Stiller, Costanza. So I think it's only appropriate that we get a 3-2-1 break on Serenity Now.
Okay.
Slumpbuster, episode 46. Serenity Now on 3. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Quiet on the set, make sure my mic is on. Eric, Dre, and Juju Dog diving towards the pylon. Go for two, so damn rude, recognize authority. Spitting tips for fantasy, no way you're outscoring me. Bold predictions with conviction every single day. Sports addiction, no restriction, kicking game like Pele. He's the greatest, what's the basis? Pick an athlete, let's debate this game. Outrageous, trading places, sudden death, take 10 paces. Turn and shoot, boys the truth, Mamba mentality. Future greats take their place, dreams become reality. Low and outside, knocked it out the park. Your boy discovered fire like a rock with a spark. Refs acting like Neanderthals, phantom flags, nothing calls. Heartbreak losses, tragic falls, every week discuss it all. Settle in, listen up, free your time like Andrew Luck. Show's about to start, I suggest you buckle up.
Serenity Now! All right, guys, I'm your host, Juju Talk Sports. I'm joined by, of course, my co-host, MMA Dre. Let's get into this episode here. We have a very awesome guest, Mykell, the PG, the host of Courtside Radio, the CEO of the Good News Sports Radio Network. Tons of great, little shows in that lineup. I know you're trying to do some big things, really get some creators together. So tell us how that's kind of going for you, Mykell.
It's going pretty good. Just reaching out to people who are involved when it comes to some of the major sports networks that we all know about, like Fox Sports, ESPN, Yahoo. And it's kind of like people that are on their way up. And they're like, hey, man, I want to have a show because I think I could take that next step. And us, the Good News Radio and the Good News Sports, we're like, hey, you can have it right here. Come to us, have your game plan ready to go, and we'll get you on the network and go from there.
Are you ready to fight it out with John Krasinski based off him releasing, I believe, a podcast similarly titled The Good News Podcast in these trying times of Corona? Are you going to have to fight it out with
No, we're good because we're an actual network. You know, he may have a show, and a lot of people, you know, they have a lot of good news when it comes to like Christianity shows and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But once you check us out, you get to see like, whoa, like they're way different. Like they have their sports shows, they have their regular talk shows, and we're just very unique. And we're an independent company, Black-owned independent company, so that makes us stand out. And we're here in LA, so we're close to a lot of the names that know what we're doing, so it's pretty good so far.
Gotta almost be in those big markets if you really want to attract names, but it sounds like you guys have a lot going on.
No, yeah, we're here we're based in LA, so we have 2 studios, like Manhattan Beach for our Good News Sports, and then Culver City for our Good News Talk. And we're just expanded. We're working on a new thing through our app, the Good News Radio, Good News TGN TV. We're working on our own TV to where when you check out the app, you can go in and watch some of the new shows that we put on that are strictly like TV series or TV podcasts specifically made for that.
Tell me about the shows in your network. Start dropping some titles for our listeners to put on their radar.
Yeah, so we have Mark My Words with my guy, Mark Gunnels. He's a producer for his show Undisputed. Pretty dope guy, man, from Kansas City to LA. I love him because I'm a Chief fan, and he's from Kansas City, and he's a Chiefs fan, so he's pretty dope. We got my guy, The Morning After with Nick Hamilton. Nick Hamilton is a guy that's just everywhere. Like, he grinds. He covers so many teams, and he's everywhere. He was just on Fox Soul with Mike Hill. And we just putting people around us that grind. We have a ladies basketball show called The Hoops Talk, where it's 2 women who work for Yahoo Sports, and they come in there and they give you a different take on basketball takes because it's 2 ladies, both from like the New York or Bay Area. And then, of course, you have my show, Courtside Radio, where it's me and the rest of the starting 5, where we give you a different perspective. We got 4 guys from the inner city of LA, and then we got this one Jewish guy from Beverly Hills that gives us a little different flavor. So, man, we got a lot of good stuff going on there.
A little bit of a kosher flavor in there, huh? To kind of really mix it up. You guys are used to being in a studio, though, so you've had to fully transition to Zoom, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, we had to switch over to Zoom. So it was tough at first because we used to, what's unique about our station and network is that it's live podcast. So people can call in, people can chat in on the chat box. So we kind of lost that because, you know, of the COVID-19. So it's kind of unique, but hey, we're finding our way through it and still taking care of business.
Mykell, I was going to ask, you know, we talked a little bit about the name Good News, and you said a lot of people associate it with, you know, Christianity or whatever it is, right, or religion. But how did you guys come up with the name Good News? Was it related to religion? Was it just something else? You're like, hey, we just want to spread good news about things. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So it actually come from my guy, shout out Keith Good News, the founder of it. He started a show out of his dad's basement called the Good News Radio Show. And he just said he just came up with the name. He was just like, man, I want to give good news to people. You know, when you listen to the news, it's bad. It's always a lot of bad things going on that they like reporting out there in the media. So he said, I want to bring good news. And once he got to his 100th episode, he decided, you know what? I don't want to do a show anymore. I want to have a network. So we ended up buying the studio and creating the first one. And we just started adding the shows on and expanded to TGN Sports. So now we have our two. And we plan to even expand even more and get to TGN Spanish and just keep developing, man.
You know what's cool from like stalking your social media a little bit? I noticed too, like you got like some pictures with like the legendary Rob Parker, Chris Broussard, some really cool guys within the industry. I really love their show, The Odd Couple. Do you have kind of like people in the mainstream that you actively like work with as mentors to kind of like build you up and get you going?
Yeah, so like Rob Parker and Chris Broussard, man, are two guys that are like mentors for me to where, you know, it's really dope. Like once you get the chance to have guys like that who introduce you to other people, bring you around, like the studio sets, even join, like hop on the show with me. Like I just recorded a show, my show Don't At Me with me and my guy, Alex Himes. We had the Odd Couple on as our guest, so that should be dropping really soon. And just learning from them. It's like being an athlete. Like if you're a basketball player, you're Kobe, you don't go to John Starks and ask him for questions. You go to Michael Jordan and say, I want to learn from you. What can I do to be great at this game? And that's the same thing that I'm kind of doing through those guys. Like, hey, what can I do? So I'm kind of blessed in that point because I can send them my show and like, hey, tell me what you guys think in this episode. And they have a lot of input into it.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome that you have like such powerful, influential guys to like turn to kind of like get some advice from. You know, like I know for myself here and Dre, we just kind of winged it. Luckily, we made it this far. You know, we're having some really cool conversations. Obviously, having you on, we're excited to have you on. We thank you for having you on. And so with that said, we do have some good news out there. We got some live sports going on. We have the UFC drop. We had the schedule release. And then we even get to see those 90s Bulls again last night. So episodes 7 and 8. I gotta say, out of this whole documentary, these were my favorite episodes. Even if it was just for that like 30-second little or that minute-long little thing where Michael Jordan's just talking about what it takes to win, the intensity, everything that kind of goes into that. He had me bought hook, line, and sinker. And, you know, that's just kind of the mentality you have to be able to compete at that level. And it was something to see. What were some of your like favorite moments, some takeaways you had from last night's episode? What are you feeling, man?
I love the whole documentary and these episodes. You get to see the type of passion and the will that he had. Like a lot of people, when you talk about LeBron, you say he doesn't have this killer mentality. And some people, you know, some younger kids are like, what are you talking about, Jordan? Because they don't really know, but they get to see it firsthand. From him sitting during interviews, you can see the fire in his heart, the passion. Like the guy went to tears when he was talking about, this is the way I play the game. And if you can't play it this way, just don't do it. And it just shows you that, man, that guy, that's a part of his greatness. It was not only that he achieved, it was that his will was so strong that he was going to accept nothing but being a GOAT and being somebody that people want to look up to. And it's the reason why he is who he is. And I love just that aspect of it. Just for Jordan, we looked at him so much as like a superhero, as this big time godly type figure. To see him like sobbing about, you know, not having his dad there. We're seeing the more human side of him. Like I was lucky to be at Kobe's memorial and to be there. You seeing Jordan the entire time, like this guy's crying the entire time. Then he gets on stage and he gives that heartfelt speech. And then you see the documentary, like he's becoming a human that we feel that we can relate to even more now, and it's just going to give him more fans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a whole new generation of fans is brought up from this. Like, you look roughly around our age, so I'm going to assume similarly, same boat. You never really got to see him play live, which is kind of like one of those biggest, like, bummers, like, for us born in the mid-90s. Like, you know, we didn't really get that, like, moment. We didn't get to see him in his prime. Like, we didn't get to see those 96 Bulls.
I'm actually born, I was born in 89, so I'm 30.
What?
So, yeah, I just...
okay.
Hey, Andre, you got to tell him, black don't crack. It's a real thing, man.
It's true. It's true. I'm telling you, my grandma, she looks like she's 40 years old or something like that. So it runs in the family, Juju. That's just how it is. But
Hey.
Mykell, you do not look 30 years old.
Hey, thank you. That's something here.
30 years young, Mr. Mykell, the PG. But yeah, no, I mean, still, with that said, you know, back end of the career, most of our like memories are like Wizards, Jordan, or Space Jam. But to see that intensity, the 96 Bulls, we got to see a little bit of Dream Team last week, and just like that athleticism to put him in the map in the 80s. It's been a really cool experience for us as fans of this decade, this era. And it's going to add some more fuel to that fire, to that whole LeBron Jordan debate as it goes. But, you know, like, let's see, some other cool moments from there. So, like, you mentioned the dad stuff.
Yeah.
As someone who's very close with my dad, I know that, like, you know, it killed me to see him on the ground, like, grasping that basketball after that finals win, for it to happen on Father's Day of all times. Like, you know, that just tells you, like, some of the times with the universe, like, how things work out, it's just funny how it happens that he would pull down his fourth title then. And maybe he could attribute some of it to, you know, picking up some skills on the basketball court in the Space Jam studios. But, you know, like, it was a powerful moment, tons of powerful scenes throughout this one. And like I said, so last week, we kind of gave the 2 episodes kind of a medium rating just because we felt like it was all over the place. This one had a very more singular story, kind of like you could see the progressions, everything like that. It wasn't bouncing around all over the place. And I appreciated that so much more from the episodes. Dre, what did you think of last night's 7 and 8?
Yeah, I thought they were fantastic. And to me, it's weird to say this, but my favorite parts really were the dad dying, in which both of you guys touched upon it. And that I had never really knew the story, right? I knew that Jordan's dad had died at some point, but then you also see what the media sort of turned it into. And you see exactly how human, like Mykell is saying, that Jordan was, is that this was a guy that obviously he had some struggles with gambling. But when you're Michael Jordan, you got a bunch of money, and, you know, he said it himself. He likes to compete at everything he does, so he gambles big. And then for people to take that story and then a tragic incident in which your dad dies and basically blame you for your dad's death when they have no idea what happened. There is no proof that anybody was taking it out on Jordan's dad, that he owed him money or anything like that. And so you have the media basically making up these lies or stories or conspiracy theories about, oh, it's Jordan's gambling debt. He's basically the one that did this to his dad. And the man literally just lost his father. So you see all of that building up, and I totally understand why Jordan was like, hey, I need a break. I need to take some time away from this. And me as an individual and a human, I even feel that way sometimes. And so I found it comforting in a weird sense that even great all-stars like a Michael Jordan also feel that way sometimes, and that, like, hey, there's just sometimes where I just need a break from it all, you know?
Yeah. Like, for me, I was really young, like the first three-peat. Like, I really started to gain true knowledge of basketball around the time of his second three-peat. So just knowing, like, what he dealt with. And the biggest thing people talk about is, oh, when Jordan returned, the Bulls just won 50 games, so they were able to win without him. No, he actually came to a Bulls team who were struggling, and that's when he came back with a 45. And just for him to lose to Orlando and bounce back the way that he did, I think that's part of his story and legacy that people don't talk about. It. They look at guys like LeBron, who has like 6 losses, and they look at these losses as negative things, where for Jordan, that loss, it let him know that, oh, I need to get back to being myself and being the great I am. And that's why he used the Space Jam thing to get himself back to where he needed to be, and it just added to his story. And then another thing a lot of people didn't know, or they relearned the 1.8 seconds with Scottie Pippen. That was a big story that during that time, and it was like nobody else has ever done that in the history of basketball. Like, you never saw Shaq say, "Oh, Kobe's getting the last shot, I'm not coming in," or, you know, D-Wade saying, "Bron's taking the last shot, oh, I'm not coming in the game." It was just something that's like was brought back up to add another stain to Scottie Pippen's name.
I got to tell you, so considering that, relearning some of these headlines, like in the impact at their time, a lot of people are feeling bad about Scottie, or feeling bad for Scottie in the first couple episodes when they heard about his contract, heard about his confrontational relationship with Jerry Krause. But then they see a moment like that, and you combine that with the contract holdout in that 98 season. How are you feeling about Scottie today, reliving these stories here? Because I know just any sport doesn't really matter. Your coach tells you something. Your coach draws up a play. You don't say no. Actually, we were having an interesting conversation about this the other night on our UFC recap, where Dre was telling us a fun story from our high school days where a coach was telling him to do the twist. Didn't want to do the twist. But there's a huge difference between wanting to do the twist in practice to loosen up your hips and, not wanting to come in to take or be part of the final shot of a playoff Eastern Conference Finals game. So, I mean, like I said, how are you feeling about Scottie after last night's episodes?
It's kind of the same. Like once you hear the story, and you're kind of like, damn, which star player does something like that? Like in any sport, like you never heard of it happening like that before. And it sucks that it's happening to Scottie because, man, people already talk so bad on his name now, but it's something that he did. And what made it even worse, you kind of laugh at it, is that Tony Kukoc knocked down the shot. So it's like, what did you truly get from that? And it kind of show you how some Bulls fans were like, you weren't all the way into this anyway. Like you're kind of looking at it in a selfish way. So that's why we give praise to Mykell so much. We give praise to Phil Jackson, and you're the third amigo of it all. But Scottie was a great. You have to respect his game. He's one of the greatest defenders ever. He's a top 50 player ever, and he deserves his due. It's just that moment allowed people to see like, whoa, what type of mistake did you make?
Yeah, Dre, how are you feeling from the first couple episodes where I know you were a big Scottie Pippen supporter? How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I was a huge Scottie Pippen supporter, and I still support him. I understand where he was coming from, I guess, in a mental way, in that he felt that he was the best player on the Bulls at that time. He felt that he had basically earned the right to take the last shot, and they had treated him poorly just from an organizational standpoint, in which they hadn't paid him what he was due. They basically have these other guys taking shots over him when it comes down to, being clutch in crunch time. And so I feel, the disrespect towards him. But that being said, you basically just quit on your team at that point. You basically said, hey, I'm just not going out. And I know that if I was his teammate, whether or not I'm better than him or he's better than me or whatever, I would still be super pissed off. Come on, dude. We need you to be a part of this. Just having you on the floor makes us a better team. Mm-hmm. So even if you're not necessarily the one taking that final shot, you still need to be a part of this. And I think, sort of like Mykell said, and when you sit out like that, you better hope that guy misses that shot. because if he doesn't and he sinks it, you look bad. The fact that you said, nope, I'm not going up there because you're not going to give me the last shot, and then that guy sinks it, it's like, well, looks like they made the right choice.
Yeah.
You might as well stay seated down, So, man, I still support him, though. I understand where he was coming from. And he did apologize, and he did say, yeah, that wasn't the best decision to make.
I know they kissed and made up after that, but I tell you, there's some organizations out there that if you pull that shit, you're gone the next year, which would have been an interesting decision. I know, let's compare that to another great coach like Belichick. Oh, no, you are not doing that. Bye. You get the axe no matter how good of a player you are. Let's see, some other interesting stories from last night. So they talked about the Kerr fight, too. So I'm actually impressed with Steve Kerr having the balls to fight back against Mykell. And, that's what he wanted. That's what he was trying to get out of Steve Kerr. And if you listen to Kerr on later interviews, he'll say, that was a moment that kind of made him a guy, made him a made man, made him feel like he had a place on the 90s Bulls as they were ready to compete for that title. And I think he's even continued that kind of legacy going into what he did with Golden State, even though I will say that obviously he had a loaded roster with Golden State, so it'd be disappointing if he didn't win those titles. I do think that having that winning mentality did come into play. What do you think of teammates fighting in practice? You played sports, obviously, Mykell, so tell me, did you ever get in a fight or confrontation at practice? I have, so I know.
Yeah, I was very fiery, so I will always get into scuffles. And I played at Lusinger High School, so my high school teammate was Russell Westbrook. And Russ, you see Russ, what he does in the NBA, he was the same type of player since I met him, so him being a senior and me being a junior, and that year, our junior year, most of the team was juniors, and it was a couple senior guys, and it was Russ's team. He can do whatever he wants. So it was plenty of times he will be on fire and throw the basketball at you and get in people's face. But as an athlete, you understand it. You want to do whatever it takes to win. And that's how Jordan was. That's how Kobe was. A lot of the greats are like that. They want to do whatever it takes to win. And sometimes, it's playing sports. You don't want to lose, and you have to do whatever it takes. And you might actually look like a bad guy to people away from the game, but your teammates and coaches understand what's going on.
I mean, Jordan had a great point. It's like when it comes to Kerr and Longley, it's like you hadn't earned anything. You weren't part of those title runs. So
Yeah.
you can't come in here and act like you've been there before. So him coming in that first like couple practices to say like, no, this shit, we're not losing to the Magic again next year. I think it needed to happen and was pivotal in their title runs. The last thing I guess we got to touch on before like we close up on like the episodes as a whole was Mykell Jordan, the baseball player. So, you know, like according to Space Jam, he's not a basketball player. He's a baseball player. So, I mean, let's see. Do you think that Mykell Jordan would have ever made it to the major leagues, or do you think he was always going to come back to basketball in the long run if the strike didn't happen?
I believe eventually he'd have went back to basketball, but I think he would have got a chance too because he wasn't like terrible. Like he was solid. Imagine not playing a sport for so many years and you come back and you still can be, you know, middle area guy. That's what he was. And his name sold tickets. So I'm pretty sure eventually he would have got up there and been on a major league team, playing with the White Sox with perfect area to play in Chicago. Those Bulls fans would have came just to see Mike. And I think he would have been a pro, but it was meant for him to play basketball. He just needed to get away from basketball. Like, people don't realize winning 3 straight championships and then playing in the Olympics, it takes a lot. And he was the brand. He was the NBA. So he had to do a lot of stuff away from the game. And he was just drained. So he just needed something new. And baseball was a great outlet.
Could you imagine being a double-A guy and Mykell Jordan is sitting next to you on the bench? Like, just how intimidating that must feel, you know?
Man, for real.
I know it was awesome seeing them be, like, buddies and everything, so I think that was probably the coolest thing. So, like,
Hey,
Mykell Jordan...
At least you can say, hey, I'm better than you at this, Mike.
True. I would say, like, you know, basketball, Mykell Jordan in practice, killer, deadly. Baseball, Mykell Jordan, fun-loving guy. Let's play some catch, throw some water on each other, you know, complete 180 on personality. So, yes, Mike needed that break. It was awesome. And, you know, hey, how many people can say they dominated one sport and got to pursue their other passion? And like Terry Francona, who I was surprised to say Terry Francona was his manager in the minors. I think that's
that's
a
crazy.
right connection. But to see Terry Francona say that he could have made it to the major leagues eventually, that's kind of interesting. Hey, 202, you know, that's like an average batting average nowadays, you know, just need to add more pop.
And around that time, you had guys doing that. You had Deion Sanders playing both. You had a guy like Bo Jackson. So it was athletes that can play multiple sports. Nowadays, it's such a no. I guess that may start in high school because of like travel sports and all that to where you just play one. But it was the thing for guys to play multiple sports. Scott Burrell, his teammate for the Bulls, was a first-round pick in baseball. It just shows you that those athletes were so great back then and were able to do multiple things. And it just shows you how great Jordan was.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I really appreciated about Jordan and his time in baseball, I know Juju, you mentioned it a little bit, is that he enjoyed it. He was having fun. But if you listen to some of the interviews, he was still working his butt off, though. Like, he would be up batting because he knew, like, okay, if it were just a fastball coming right down the pipe, like right down the middle, I could hit it. But everything else, he knew, like, I have to get better at it. And he put in the work to do it. So, yes, he was still having fun. And I think he realized, like, hey, I'm not the top dog in baseball. I can't act the same way that I do in basketball just because there's guys that are so much better than me, but I'm still going to work my hardest to make sure that I'm good at it. And going back to your question that you asked, Juju, I really do think he probably would have made it to the majors. I don't think he necessarily would have been like your go-to starter, but his work ethic alone and just his athleticism, I think he could have made it there.
Good little bench guy, you know, solid little guy to bring off. I mean, based off his numbers alone, you would consider him probably not a starter, but pinch hitter, pinch runner, probably more in that vein. Perfect, like, way to wrap up. So, like, in terms of rating system, Mykell, so, like, we like to rate every episode here. So, our rating system, 1 star, that's going to be a strikeout, swing and a miss. 2-star, foul ball. 3-star, that's going to be a base hit, a Texas leaguer, you know, just something to get into the field. 4-star, that's warning track power. Back to the track, off the wall, and 5-star home run. I've already pretty much shown my card, so that's a home run for me. So where are you leaning, man?
I'm with you with that, man. I got it as a home run. Just the fact that it was so much emotion into it, and we got to see the baseball side. Like, it wasn't talking about gambling anymore and things like that. It was just straight, you know, him with the baseball, him stepping away, telling you that, and then you got so much emotion. You know how many people were teary-eyed after, you know, the incident with him laying down with the ball because of his dad, and it just brought that emotion. And then you saw the passion. So for me, home run out of the park, man. It's into the water. It's into the water a candlestick, man. That's
wow, splash shot. I dig it. Trey,
Nope, I'm 100% in agreement with you guys in that. To me, this has been the best 2 episodes that we've gotten in the series. It had a little bit of everything, but it was still a cohesive story in comparison to last week's episode. Everything flowed really well, but you got the emotion, you got some of the highlights of his baseball career where it was sort of happier moments, and then you got sort of the passion and the, I guess, more sad or angry moments when it came to either his father passing away or him in the locker room with his colleagues and his partners, right, and his teammates. So I thought it had it all, but it was all really, really well done, really cohesive. So home run.
Not a great couple episodes for the media, though. They definitely got roasted on that start there. I mean, and rightfully so, because come on. Again, trying to associate a guy to his father's death and then the whole baseball Air Jordan. Not a good look. Not a good look. Sports Illustrated at all.
For those LeBron fans who say that Jordan never dealt with scrutiny, imagine being blamed for your father's death and having to come back and play ball. Now that's crazy right there.
Right. It is an interesting experiment, though, to think about what Michael Jordan would have been like in the social media era. Would he be a tweeter? Would he be like boisterous like LeBron is? Because we know he likes to talk trash, but I kind of feel like even the fact if you look nowadays as the owner of the Bobcats, it's like he doesn't have an IG page. I don't think he has a Twitter either, does he? Anyone? Fact check? Nah. I don't believe so.
Doesn't. Yeah, he does. Because I know they have the Jumpman 23 Instagram, but I know that's not him.
Oh, so, he's not running that.
Yeah, he's not running that at all. So that would have been a unique thing. Just imagine, like, he would have broke the internet with his "I'm back." He would have tweeted that "I'm back." Internet would have went crazy.
Oh, it would have been the most powerful 2 words since like Brady's first tweet. And Brady's first tweet was just something like, haha, I'm old on Twitter. And that was like one of Twitter's most liked tweets ever. Hey guys, this is Juju Talk Sports, and I'm here to talk about Manscaped.com. Now, Manscaped is the #1 men's grooming technology, the only brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. They have precision-engineered tools for the family jewels. The Perfect Package 3.0 comes with the new improved Lawnmower 3.0. It's waterproof, it's cordless, and it also comes with a ton of liquid formulations to round out your manscaping routine. This 3rd-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge blade to prevent manscaping accidents. Millions of balls around the world are now nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin care technology. And of course, let's not forget about the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant to prevent moisture, kind of like keep everything all fresh down there. Subscribers get a new replacement blade refill for the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer delivered to your door every 3 months. Make sure your trimmer always stays fresh and clean. For a limited time offer, subscribers get not 1, but 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the patented high-performance anti-chafing boxer briefs. Get 20% off, plus free shipping in with the code SLUMP at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SLUMP at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping and handling at manscaped.com and use SLUMP. Manscaped is the best when it comes to men's grooming. Get yourself the Joe Burrow of trimmers, the Lawnmower 3.0. Enjoy the rest of the show. All right, guys. So like I said, we got some live sports here. So Dre and I did a live reaction to UFC 249 the other night. Some awesome matches. I believe we're all in agreement. The fight of the night has to be the main event. Gaethje, Ferguson, those 2 guys went to war, and hell of an upset, though. Like, I mean, Ferguson, he's on this crash course for Khabib. Everyone's saying Khabib, Ferguson, 6th attempt. Let's get this done. Let's finally end this curse. Well, the curse lives on because Gaethje knocks out Ferguson with a minute to go. And I mean, I called it simply because I said, listen, we're so snake bitten with this Khabib-Tony fight. There's no way it happens. Gaethje's going to get this win. And to my surprise, I happen to get the win. Now, MMA Dre, my partner, MMA Dre here, you were not so lucky. You did not pick that main event correctly. I hate to say it, my friend, but, you know, like, it was a hell of a fight. Do you want to kind of like summarize what we saw in that main event?
Yeah, so I will say it was only one of 3 fights that I picked incorrectly on the night. But of course, the main events are always the big ones that you want to try to get correct. So yes, Juju, you beat me in that one. And I think there was a few things that I underestimated or I didn't put enough weight in when making that pick. And I think a lot of people, when analyzing this fight, is that Tony Ferguson had cut weight just 2 weeks earlier, right, to prepare for their fight that was previously supposed to happen in April. So he had already cut 24 pounds, and then he goes back up, and then he cuts again. And Ferguson, even in his interview, sort of said it that he had basically been in training camp since November and trying to stay in peak shape since then all the way through to April, and then that fight fell through, so then they pushed it into May. So I think all of that really just wore on Ferguson. But from a technical standpoint, some things that were really interesting, and you actually had mentioned this, is that it was going to come down to basically who was more aggressive and had that style. When Ferguson has fought a lot of other people, he has such a long reach that he can basically scare guys off using, just straight jabs and crosses, or he does this little Superman punch to even extend his reach a little bit further. And I think when guys get hit with that, they continue to back up and say, okay, nope, I'm going to keep getting basically punched in the face if I go forward anymore. But Gaethje has a different style in which is like, I don't care if you hit me with a jab. Like, I'm going to get close to you and I'm going to hit you with these crazy hooks that we saw coming. And even his corner, actually, if you got to listen into some parts, his corner, and Gaethje is who I'm referring to, they were even telling him like, hey, you've got to reduce the power a little bit. You're going to punch yourself out. Yeah. And so he just kept going forward, closing that distance in which I think Ferguson couldn't use his usual offense that he normally does. And when you're in that close of a space, reach is actually a little bit less of an advantage because your elbows, they work, but they're more of like a cutting technique. They're not a heavy hit like a hook or an uppercut. So that's what I think ultimately led to the fight. And then Ferguson just didn't really have a whole lot of other tools that were working against Gaethje. We saw him go for a few weird, funky takedowns. He had this really slick, like sort of hand inside the leg, low single ankle pick type thing, or he tried to do a submission roll where he rolls on the ground, grabs the ankle, and tries to go for like a heel hook or something. But ultimately, Gaethje just proved that he was the man.
Every time he went in, he was greeted by two fists. Mykell, did you have any thoughts on the main event?
No, it just showed early that Gaethje, when he took some shots from Ferguson, that he realized, like, oh, I can take his power. So once he lost that fear of his power, like most guys that fight Ferguson, once they get hit early, they're kind of like, damn, I'm in for a long night. But once Gaethje took those hits, you could tell he was just like, oh, I'm going in here with everything I got because he's not going to be able to knock me out. And you can just tell, like you said, Andre, like he was throwing these power punches with every shot, and you can just see it. And I was watching it with my buddies. I'm just like this guy is trying to knock him out with every hit. It was just so amazing because, mostly everyone had Ferguson winning. We were expecting to see him versus Conor or Khabib next. And just to see Gaethje go in there and just with no fear and attack the way he did, it was very impressive.
One statistic that I learned after the fight is Gaethje still to this point has not attempted a single takedown in his MMA career, which is fascinating given the fact that his background is in wrestling. Just blows my mind. You talk about withstanding power. There is one fighter that was on the UFC 249 that you cannot withstand this kind of power. Francis Ngannou with the knockout of the night, 20 seconds against Rosenstrike. It was just the most insane thing. And by the way, just because we misquoted it on our live reaction, Francis Ngannou from Cameroon, and we have no problem with his first name being Francis. We understand it is a French name, and we don't want to offend our French viewers. But over here, it is kind of a funny name, and that's why Francis Ngannou is so damn impressive. Just a huge physical specimen. Mykell, tell me, that knockout, like when you saw that man just walk in there and just wreck shop right away, what were you thinking?
Just first of all, when you see Francis, you just don't expect him to lose. So I'm talking to my buddies while we're watching it, like, man, hey, this might be the guy to take Francis down. Like, no way in hell that is going to happen. And he just attacked like an Incredible Hulk. He just came at this guy and just threw. It was like a jail fight. We talked about it before we started recording. Like, it was like a jail fight. He was like, I'm not going in too much technique. I'm going to just throw all my power and I'm going to connect. And he did. And the guy was asleep. Like, I don't see how people want to get in the ring with him. Like, if that's my next fight, I'm going to say, hey, I'm actually take a few months off so I can drop down ranking and beat up on the other guys because Francis is incredible, man.
Andre, let's talk about Francis's future because DC was actually commentating on this event and they instantly put a live reaction of his face after seeing that knockout. And it was basically just like, he looked like a jack-o'-lantern, just looking in awe at what just happened like we all were. Since then, DC has actually made a statement that if Stipe is not ready to go, he might be willing to take on Francis. Do you think this is a good fight for DC?
I think it's a dangerous fight for anybody, right? DC or not. No, I mean, that just shows you the competitor that DC is. And DC gets a whole lot of crap. I think there was those crying memes where everybody, I think, disrespects DC more than he deserves. Like, he deserves a lot more respect than a lot of people give him, especially he himself was an Olympian wrestler. He took 4th at the Olympics. I want to say it was in Greco. He wrestled in college, and then he was a 2-division champion. But he's also on the wrong side of 40, and he's got to fight a young up-and-coming dude that we know has reach and strength. And, you know, Juju, you and I, we talk about MMA 101, that series that we're doing where we go in-depth into MMA analysis. In episode 1, right, we talked about that pairing of when you've got height and reach paired with strength, that just makes you super deadly, super lethal. And that's exactly what we saw against Rozenstruik. Is that Rozenstruik, we saw him coming in swinging hard in those first, 10 seconds, but Ngannou just had to move out of the way, and then Rozenstruik was still in his reach, and Ngannou not even using technique, just putting him to sleep right away. And that would be my worry for DC, is that, yes, his wrestling is great, and I think if he can take Ngannou down every single round, he has that shot at winning, but you have to be able to get past that power, and you run the risk every single time you move in close enough. Just one hit is all it takes, and we saw that this weekend.
Well, what went wrong for Rozenstruik is when he started backing up, obviously he lost the ability to cover up. That chin was exposed. And if you just take one of those hooks from Ngannou, you're done. That's just end of story. You did mention that at least DC, he's the more technical fighter here. If he can get Francis to the ground, does Francis have enough of a grapple game to necessarily win that fight?
I personally don't think so. There's just another level of wrestling I think that DC possesses that people don't realize. Like, DC, when it comes to grappling, he's not doing your crazy jiu-jitsu stuff that we saw maybe even in like that Fabricio Verdun fight where he's going for arm bars and kimuras. That's not DC's style when it comes to grappling. What he's really trying to do is just basically take you down and hold you down and then beat your face in while you're on the ground. And it's extremely difficult to get away from a high-level folk-style wrestler when you're on the ground. Like, if you haven't competed in wrestling, it's almost impossible to do. And guys have a lot of difficulty, even against like a Khabib Nurmagomedov, where you have really high level fighters. But when you have somebody that's that developed and trained their entire life in wrestling, they can just hold you down on the ground. And that takes away your power because you really don't have that leverage that you normally do and that strength and ability to throw those punches. I still think Ngannou could probably knock some people out laying down on his back, right, and punching upwards. But it's a lot harder when you're down there on the ground. And I think DC could potentially hold him down the entire time if he's able to score some quick takedowns at the beginning of the round.
Now, obviously, UFC has a huge advantage in the fact that it's individual fighters. You know, they're easier tests. There's less of them. You don't have to worry about that many people when it comes to setting up a UFC or MMA main event. They have the added benefit. Now they have Fight Island, which they're still going to throw events on. So is UFC basically saying to these other sports, it's time to get going? Do you think we're at that point with this whole COVID situation? Because it's starting to feel like it's making that turn. In baseball, we had a great discussion on Friday about it. They're ready to come back here in July. The NBA hasn't released really much of a plan to this point as far as what they plan on doing. What do you think of kind of like the future of sports moving forward over the next couple months? Do you see those two sports opening up right away, Michael?
I think that it's so tough because when it comes to basketball and the NFL, you know, NBA and the NFL, the fans are so big. They're so much of a big part when it comes to it. With baseball, it just comes down, you know, to the athletes. They're there. Like, you booing or cheering doesn't really dictate too much. And just like UFC or maybe even boxing, it just comes down to those people in the ring. But like with football, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And one of the big advantages of playing for the Chiefs is playing at home at Arrowhead and your crowd making it tough for the other team and stuff like that. So, man, and even like basketball, like the Lakers playing at home and like the playoffs, the home and away is the advantage for some of these guys because some guys play well at home, some guys play well on the road. And to take that away, I think the players are looking at that and like, man, that's going to be so weird for us because we're so used to having so many fans in the crowd. But Dana White said, hey, I'm about to get this money. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to make this money, and I'm going to do whatever you guys. I'm going to get this island, and you guys going to fight over here. And I think the other leagues are going to say, hey, you know, Dana's right. We need to get this money because we're losing so much or we're going to lose so much money. So we got to find a way to get everything rolling and come back. So I think you're going to start slowly seeing the sports teams and the different sports to come back. Like I heard today, the Utah Jazz, who pretty much ended the NBA season with Gobert, they opened up their practice facilities. So I think you're going to start to slowly see teams in these different sports to come back and find a way to make it happen, because the country of no sports is so weird right now. It's like, what do you do? Like, there's not enough movies on Netflix, not enough movies on Hulu. You can play Call of Duty for only how long? So they're going to find a way to get these sports teams going and these different sports coming back. And, hey, that's our job to talk about it, right? So
Yes,
I
sir.
can't wait for them to come back, man.
Now, Dre, you're all about the expansion, the future of MMA, the UFC. So tell me, like, in this time where there is no NBA, where there is no MLB, and UFC is standing supreme, everyone's watching. UFC had twice their record in pay-per-view pre-buys prior to this. What do you think of the future for UFC? Is this the perfect time to generate a whole new fan base, to basically incorporate UFC into the next generation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And what I think the UFC benefits from that some of these other sports just can't do is the ability to isolate the players or athletes, right? And so we know that one of the fighters actually did come up. So Jacare Sosa did test positive for COVID-19. But because it's such an individual sport, they basically just said, hey, you and your camp, we're going to keep you in your room and you guys just go back home. And then we're going to cancel your fight. Or had they had enough time, they probably could have found a replacement fight, but I think it would have been difficult. And other sports can't do that, right? Like, I can't just say, oh, okay, LeBron James, like, we're going to hold you out. Like, you need everybody there to practice for basketball. You need everybody there to practice for football. Everybody's got to be interacting with each other. There's going to be time in the locker room where they're all talking to each other and changing out and all of that stuff. And so with the UFC, it's just different. Like, you can literally give everybody their own hotel room and say, you stay there, you stay there, you stay there, and they don't have to interact. So I think the UFC is able to capitalize during this time in that other sports just don't have the advantage of being an individual sport. And so the UFC can host these events and limit the exposure to the virus that their athletes have. And with that, you sort of were talking about it, Mykell, is that there's nothing to do right now. So you can only play so many video games. You know, can only watch so much of Netflix and Hulu. And so I think everybody's willing to just say, hey, you know, I might as well try something, right? I might as well see what's going on in UFC.
And I truly think for even boxing too, I'm a really big boxing fan. For boxing and UFC, this is the time to really attack. Like, this is the time to really get your brand and sport out there, because people are trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my Saturday? And you can say, I know what you can do. I'm going to have these 5 to 8 fights for you to check it out. And you're going to get everybody's attention. For the people who are out there that are breaking the rules, shame on you. They're going to get their friends together and they're going to say, hey, let's just watch the fight and kick back. And that's the way that we're going to party and have fun. And the two perfect sports for that is MMA and boxing, because everybody you can do it. Like you said, you can isolate these athletes so that it's just them. Like, once they get into the ring, it's just them and a couple of others. So you don't need 11 guys, 10, 12 guys. It's just, I got my trainer, my cut man, and then it's me as the fighter. So if I'm boxing UFC, I'm like, hey, we need to attack. If we can have an event every weekend, let's do it, because by the time this is done, they're going to have so many new fans.
It's an opportunity. So, like, when we think about the sports hierarchy, obviously NFL is number 1, then NBA is number 2 in popularity, MLB. Then we kind of get into that 4 spot. And NHL, you can make an argument, but I really think you're talking about college football at that point. So if you're MMA, if you're the UFC, you could jump yourself into the top 5 by the time this is all over. I think it's not completely out of line to say they could hop over hockey. And if college sports, which are definitely in trouble coming into this because of all the added factors of the school part of it.
Yeah.
And, this is a time where they can even potentially jump for at least a brief time. I won't say they will fully engulf college football, because football itself is king in America.
Yeah.
They can jump over college football for at least a brief time, and that's enough to develop a whole new audience that they can use for years and capture and, just maintain, groom to be UFC fans.
Yeah, and with UFC, since a lot of their fighters are from different countries, you're getting more than just America. You're getting the entire world that's tuning in to watch their favorite fighters. So this is the time. Dana White, if you need a show, hey, I'm here, man. Hit me up. I'm ready to do it, because I know that he's someone he has like that Jordan Kobe mentality, to where he's like, hey, I'm gonna attack. I don't give a damn what anybody say. I'm gonna make sure this happens. And hey, they starting off really great like that. The UFC, 249 was amazing. And you could tell that he's like, okay, I love these numbers. I saw the success of it. We're going to get a lot more to come.
The point that I was about to make is that you've got these fighters, and we even talked about one of them, right? Is we were sort of laughing about Francis Ngannou's name because anybody else that's named Francis, right? You're getting beat up every day after.
Yeah, true.
You're not beating up that guy, but he's from Cameroon, so we made a mistake. We said I think Nigeria last night. Or Saturday night, sorry. He is from Cameroon, so we did fact check that, so sorry about that. But, I mean, you've got fighters from Cameroon, you've got fighters from Nigeria, you've got China has a few champions in the different organizations, Japan, Korea, and so a lot of these are also places where they're under complete lockdown, where they're not even able to leave their house. So Italy was locked down for a long time. They're more of a soccer country. A lot of the European countries are mostly soccer. And now you can't have soccer, you can't have any of those other sports. You might as well cheer on fighters from your home country.
Yep.
Maybe we'll have a broader discussion on this, but I heard a great topic of them potentially opening up more divisions. Maybe that's an option for MMA 101. Check out MMA Dre at MMA Dre on Instagram. Anyway, moving into kind of our next subject. So speaking of the Francis Ngannou of the sports world, the NFL delivering just haymaker after haymaker, whether it's draft when they have over 50% more than last year's draft in viewership, or it's the NFL schedule release where they can have a 3-hour broadcast. Now, I'll admit, I'll be upfront about it. I didn't watch all 3 hours of the broadcast. I just kind of looked at every team's schedule and did my own breakdowns within myself. But God, you just got to give it to the NFL. And now they have this potential situation where they could be on Christmas Day for each of the next 4 years, which is just a giant middle finger to the NBA. I mean, if you're the NFL, you're Roger Goodell, do you even consider just having a game on Christmas Day every year if over the next 4 years you happen to outrank the NBA in the ratings?
Yeah, if it fits in the schedule, like if it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, why not? Like I said, I'm a Chiefs fan. I can remember one Christmas the Chiefs played the Denver Broncos one night, and it's football. Like, you want to watch football whenever you can. So if you can have it on Christmas, why not take advantage of it? And by the time they have their games, like they usually play like a night game. So the top NBA games are already done, so you can throw in some football into Christmas. Who doesn't want to wake up and know that, hey, I get to watch the Lakers play, if they're winning, and then I can finish the night watching a great football game. Like, hey, it's what every sport fan wants.
I agree with that. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great Christmas gift. You mentioned your Chiefs. Granted, I'm still a little bit bitter. Don't remind me about 20-10 as the Niners fan on this podcast here.
Oh, man.
You guys
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you guys get open up this season, though, against the Houston Texans. At least on the bright side, we blew up a 20-10 lead. Sucks. It happened. At least we didn't blow a 24-0 lead.
True.
They're in a Houston-based franchise. How are you feeling about your Chiefs' schedule this year?
I like the schedule, the primetime games. I like the opener. I loved week 3 at Baltimore with the Ravens. We got just a lot of big time games. For me, usually I'm always looking at the schedule to see when we play certain teams and how many games are we on the road. But man, with this Chiefs team, I'm kind of hey, bring them to us. We're going to knock them down. I just trust number 15. I just feel that him and Andy Reid together with what they call Legion of Zoom and a defense that's improving. I just feel that you could have put us against any team, any day, and I'm confident that the Chiefs can win. I got the Chiefs no worse than 12-4 this year. I just can't wait to see the game versus Baltimore at Baltimore because that was supposed to be the AFC Championship. Shame on you, Titans. You were supposed to go there and lose. We wanted to see Lamar versus Mahomes, but we're taking it in week 3.
I mean, with that said, you guys do happen to have a track record for always beating the Ravens. So, I mean, would the results have been that much different? I mean, the thing about Lamar is I don't think he can keep up with Patrick. That guy, I mean, what he's able to do with his arm and his legs is just way above what Lamar is right now at this point.
Sure.
Granted, the Ravens will be a tough one. I will say that. And the Ravens are going to be the big, interesting test for my co-host team here. So he's a Steelers fan. How are you feeling about the Steelers 2020 schedule, Trey?
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about it right now. So we've got some pretty tough teams. Let me see if I could pull it up. But I think our division just as a whole got better this offseason. I know, I'm not too worried about the Bengals just yet. They're not the best team, even with Joe Burrow and all that they did in the draft. But, of course, the Browns are always tough. And then we've got the Ravens. So that's going to be difficult. Let's see.
Yeah, you guys face the NFC East this year. And from the looks of it, you'll also be playing the AFC South. So, hey, you get a Cowboys game in there. Niners get a Cowboys game, so always fun to
That's
see
always fun.
teams beat up on the Cowboys.
Yeah, what I'm really worried about, so we've got the Bills on our schedule. We've also got the Colts, who we know are scrappy. We beat them last year, I think, but they're still pretty scrappy. The Cowboys, I think, right now are probably a better team than the Steelers are. So I am a little bit worried. The Eagles, we'll see how that one goes. I think that one's more of a coin flip. And then the Broncos, I think, are like a scheme as well. But I think, like I said, we'll just see how it goes. I'm a little bit worried, though. This might be the first year where we see Tomlin with a losing record.
Mykell made a record prediction. He called the Chiefs 12-4. What do you want to put on your Steelers?
Oh, man. I think a lot of it's going to just depend on Ben Roethlisberger's health.
True.
And whether or not he's doing well. We'll see if Juju can maybe bounce back now that he has a sufficeable quarterback throwing him the ball. And then James Conner, of course, we're going to be relying a lot on him. Our defense is going to be good. I just don't know if our offense will be able to win us the game. So I'm going to say a similar record to what we did this year, and I'll just play it safe and say we go 8-8.
Okay, and we all know that the Niners are going 19-0, so no need for me to break down the schedule. I won't go into deep depth. Nick Bosa is going to have 20 sacks. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to throw 50 bombs. It's just going to work out just fine, guys. Not to be too confident here. No, I'm kidding. But no, I mean, the Niners are going to have a tough schedule. They have a tough stretch in the middle. Get to see Jimmy G return to New England. I'm excited for that game. Get to see them against the Saints in the Superdome again. That was the game of the year last year in my mind. So excited to see that one take place once again. And then they have, of course, that game in Week 15 against the Cowboys, which I am dotting and hoping that somehow, some way, I can get into Jerry World as normally, most of the time of the year. I'm in Austin, Texas. 3-hour drive. I can make that. But, all right.
Hey, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Just to say one thing about the Niners. I can't wait to see the games against Seattle, because last year each one was a classic game. And what do they have next? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be amazing. Like, Seattle is improving. The Niners look like they're going to be great again. So I want to see those two games, because last year they gave us probably the two best games in the entire year.
Oh, if you're NBC and you're looking at that Week 17 spot between them, you're thinking to yourself, okay, please both these teams be good, because that was our moneymaker last year. I'm not sure if the other Seattle game is also a primetime game. I'd have to double check that one. But
nope, it's Fox 125.
Fox. I mean, Fox doesn't want to let that go either. You know, when both those teams are good, they are arguably the best rivalry in the NFL. I mean, no bias on there, but like when you compare what they did in 2013 and what they did last year in those two games, when those two teams are on, they're tough. Similar, I'll say this too, even though like Ravens Steelers, when both those teams are good, like you could compete. Those are probably the two best rivalries in the league at this moment. So with that said, I'm going to ask you guys to name like your favorite game on the schedule that is not involving any of one of your teams. I'm going to let you guys go first, because I'm going to allow you guys to still potentially one that I think is mine.
For me, a game I want to see, it actually involves the Niners. I want to see the Thursday night game versus Green Bay. I feel that people are just writing Green Bay off like they're just going to go from 13-3 to terrible. Their team is so young with the young coaching staff that they kind of overachieve. They're going to be really good again. So we're going to see Aaron Rodgers, who's hell-bent on keeping Jordan Love on the bench. So I think that Thursday night game between the Niners and Green Bay is going to be very special.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with your team, actually, Mykell, and I'm going to say the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's two games that I'm really looking forward to. So there's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that's where we're really going to see, is Tom Brady all he's cracked up to be as a quarterback. Now, everybody's been saying he's got weapons now. You know, in New England, they wouldn't give him any help. Okay, he's got the help that he's been asking for. So let's see if he can do what everybody thinks he can. And then, of course, Kansas City and New Orleans, that's going to be a shootout. We already know. So those are the two games I'm looking forward to.
For me, and I really hope that the Raiders are good this year, because Week 2, Monday night against the Saints, that could be fun to see that in Las Vegas, Nevada, the opening of that new stadium. First game ever in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be a good game to see, and I really, really want to see both teams compete at the best level they can. I mean, Gruden and Mayock, they made some decent picks there to shore it up, but the bane of the Raiders last year was obviously their defense. If they didn't make any like real big additions to that are meaningful, we know that Drew Brees and company is probably going to carve them up. So hopefully that's a good competitive game. If not, then of course the one that's caught everyone's eye, that's probably the most talked about in the mainstream media, is of course Brady Brees Week 1.
Yep.
Now, two legends, two guys that are at the top of pretty much every quarterback category there is, except I guess interceptions. That's for Brett Favre to have. But, you know, like these guys have just been such a part of like each one of our lives for the last 20 years. And to see them and potentially Drew Brees' last season, Brady's maybe his last couple, it's good to see these matchups happen. And Brady has all the weapons in the world. Brees has all the weapons in the world. Let's see those two guys go to war. Let's see who's the veteran that's going to come out on top. All right, guys. Any final takeaways from the NFL schedule? I mean, we'll probably break down wins-loss records over the next couple of weeks, but what are you thinking? Any last thoughts?
Man, I'm just ready for it. I can't wait for the NFL season to come. I want to see if my Chiefs can defend their title, man. They added a first-round running back, some pieces to the defense. I'm just very excited. I can't wait to see the game versus the Saints, Tampa Bay, and then a much-improved division with the Raiders. And being in Vegas, like I'm going to that game for sure. I have to go and see the Death Star and see. I have so many buddies that are Raider fans. I said, man, I'm so happy that Chiefs have two new stadiums, one in LA and one in Vegas, that they can take claim to, and it's going to be very exciting.
I don't think you can claim the LA one. Come on.
We're going to beat the Chargers.
Well, okay, you'll have more fans than the Chargers there, but I think the most popular team in LA is actually coincidentally the Raiders.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the NFL season. I'm glad that the NFL is already, getting moving on stuff. I thought they took the perfect opportunity to still host the draft, right? Even though it was a little bit weird and awkward over Skype, they did a good job now releasing the schedules. They did a fantastic job. And talking about the Raiders, I really do hope that we don't get the situation that the UFC is in where it's no fans, because like it's got to suck for them is that, they've been moving out of Oakland, then they're going into Vegas. And then now that first year, you're supposed to have your shiny new stadium. And if you can't have fans, it's like we just put all this money, all this time and effort, and you can't really get the full rewards out of it. So I do feel bad for them. But overall, I'm just excited for the league. Even if there are no fans, I'll definitely be watching.
Final question here. Favorite all-time sports movie? You're on the clock.
Favorite all-time sports movie? I got it. I'm a big Denzel Washington fan, so He Got Game, I just feel was a story, that was very dope of a player that was a top-ranked player. Every hooper, football player, big-time sports athlete in high school wants to have that entire experience of being recruited and things like that, and you were able to get everything, through that movie. So that movie will be one, and number two, I'll probably say White Man Can't Jump.
Okay, gotcha. I think actually one of our guests in the past had like had that exact combination too as their like top two. So, alrighty. That's another one in the win category for He Got Game. Mykell, tell us where, how can we get connected to you? How can we listen to you? Good News Sports Radio.
Yep.
Tell the people, enlighten us.
So you guys can check me out on Mykell the PG on Instagram and Twitter. Mykell Mathieu on Facebook, last name Mathieu. Mykell is Mykell. You can find all of our work on the Good News Radio, the Good News Radio app. We have our own app where you can listen to our talk shows, or you can listen to all of our sports shows, whether live or you can go in and listen to them in podcast form. My show, Courtside Radio, check us out. We go live every Thursday, 6:30 to 7:30. And then I have my show on YouTube. Make sure you guys check out as well. Don't at me with Mykell or Alex. It's under my guy, Alexander Hines. You can check under his name. A lot of stuff going, man, with the Good News Radio and with Courtside, with Don't At Me, man. And the grind never stops, man. The marathon continues, as we say here in LA, and that's what I'm sticking with,
I respect that. I live that. Grind never stops. Words to live by. Dre, tell everyone about MMA 101. You're doing a lot of cool things. I think everyone should know where to find that because it's a great series if you are into UFC, MMA, basically fighting and combat sports.
You can find my YouTube channel. It's at MMA Dre. I've got a lot of links through some of the Slumpbuster channels. So if you follow the Slumpbuster, you can find it there. But really what they are is it's a series of about 10-minute videos where we just take one topic and we go really in depth in MMA. So it's not necessarily a channel to teach you how to fight. You're not going to become a professional fighter or anything like that. But we are going to use science, data analysis, math, and just personal experience from, my background in martial arts and wrestling, and really just dive into into mixed martial arts and other combat sports, boxing, Muay Thai. And so the 2 episodes that we have out right now are, one, weight cutting. So we did a whole analysis on why guys cut weight and how much of an advantage is height and reach, and depending on what weight class. Our second episode is actually our top 5 takeaways from UFC 249. And then episodes 3 and 4 are going to be about the best gyms in the world. So we're going to take data literally from 1,000 fighters across the world and see if we could analyze that data, what gyms they train at, and come up with a definitive answer for this is the best MMA gym in the world. Stay tuned for it.
At Juju Talk Sports, at Slumpbuster Podcast on IG, at Slumpbuster Pod on Twitter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys. We really appreciate it. We cracked the 100 mark a couple weeks ago, and we just want to grow from here. Other places to listen to us, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, all the good places to listen to your favorite podcast. We'll be back with another episode later on this week. Stay safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you next time, hopefully with some more good news.